may be a bit surprised to see me standing here, hale and hearty. It appears that hospitals, even the military hospital, are toxic areas for the commander-in-chief. My presence at the brief visit to the military hospital yesterday to visit my brother-in-law, the famous pilot, Captain Powell Spencer, who's unfortunately there for a hip operation, has been translated into my collapse on the social media in preparation for my evacuation abroad. All I can say is that those whose political fortunes depend on my ill health and degeneration, all I can say is that we're all in the hands of the Almighty. Amen. Minister for Communications, Minister for National Security, the Minister for Defense, Attorney General, Deputy Ministers for Communication, Chairperson of Parliament Select Committee on Communications, Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police, Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, Chief of Air Staff, the Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Police Service, National Security Advisor, Director General of the National Communications Authority, the European Union Ambassador to Ghana, and the Resident Manager of the World Bank, fellow Ghanaians, members of the Diplomatic Corps, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly a year ago, I attended the opening ceremony of the National Cybersecurity Week, aimed at drawing the country's attention to the growing importance of the digital world and its inherent dangers. It is gratifying to note that a year on, the Cybersecurity Week celebration has become a feature of our efforts to deal with the threats to the digital ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, since coming into office on 7 January 2017, some 21 months ago, the government has put in place a number of steps to accelerate the process of formalizing the Ghanaian economy, i.e. creating a system where all economic transactions and social activities are fully captured and recorded. Moving the economy from being cash-based to one where business transactions are done electronically is an integral part of this development of formalization. Policies to this end, such as the e-business registration system, paperless port clearance system, digital property address system, mobile interoperability system, and the national identification system, with linkages to the databases of institutions such as the Police Service, National Health Insurance Scheme, Passport Office, Immigration Service, Judicial Service, Ghana Revenue Authority, and the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority have been introduced. While undertaking these measures to digitize our economy and improve our way of living, we're also mindful of the dark side of digitization, i.e. cybercrimes, cyber espionage, cyber war, and terrorism, amongst others. In recent times, we turn on our televisions only to hear news of accusations and counter-accusations being made by the world's most powerful countries against each other for one act of cyber infringement or another. Indeed, the ongoing investigation in the United States of America by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, investigating alleged meddling by Russia in the 2016 U.S. elections, is a case in point. These issues might seem to be far away from us, and we may feel insulated from them. But recently in Ghana, there have been cyber attacks on some of our banks, attacks which were followed by the vigilance of the banks and the security services. I was also told of an instructive story about a cyber attack on the IT infrastructure of Maersk, the world's largest container ship and supply vessel operator, by hackers who managed to deploy a ransomware called NotPetya. This malware, for 4 days, completely shut down the operations of the company because all of its computers, domain controllers, and network had been infected. Maersk's saving grace was, quote, one lone surviving domain controller in a remote office in Ghana, unquote. Apparently, according to reports, that one computer in Ghana, which was located in Tema, at the time of the cyber attack, was off because of power outage in the area. And as such, had not been infected. Maersk was thus able to retrieve its data and restore its operations because of that one computer located here in Ghana. It goes to show you how interconnected the world is and the importance we need to attach to this new global threat. It tells us also that on rare occasions, dumsor can have positive consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, whilst our law enforcement agencies continue to deal with the Sakawa or 419 phenomenon and advance fee fraud, they continue, understandably, to be overwhelmed by the numbers, the complexity of the cases, and level of technical expertise and sophistication exhibited by persons involved in these acts. As we scale up e-connectivity as part of government's digitization agenda, we will certainly witness an upsurge of criminal activities if we do not put in place precautionary measures to forestall such eventualities. With 10 million Ghanaians connected to the internet, of which 4.9 million are Facebook users alone, the impact of any cyber attack on our e-business platforms or on mobile telephony would impact negatively on businesses and on the lives of Ghanaians. When critical databases and information infrastructures of our institutions are hacked by unauthorized persons, and the information used to perpetuate an attack against an individual, a business, or the state itself, we are all at risk. These are the critical issues that have animated government's efforts at increasing public sensitization, capacity building, and investment in a fit-for-purpose cybersecurity infrastructure to help make our digital experience safe and secure. Later today, I'll be at the National Communications Authority to launch the Computer Emergency Response Team, CERT, for the telecommunications sector. This is one of the measures put in place to coordinate incident responses within that sector. Also, a security operations center has been set up at the Bank of Ghana to facilitate cybersecurity incident monitoring and cyber threat information sharing amongst players in the financial sector. The Bank of Ghana, working hand in hand with the Ministry of Communications and the Ghana Association of Bankers, will this afternoon launch a cyber and information security directive for the financial sector in view of the persistent cyber attacks targeted at this sector. In our efforts to pursue international cooperation engagements as part of addressing the menace of cybercrime, Ghana has ratified the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, that is the Malabo Convention, becoming the third country on the continent to do so. I have signed the Convention on Cybercrime, known as the Budapest Convention, following cabinet approval. I'm hopeful the Parliament will ratify it in its forthcoming meeting. These two international treaties will enhance our cooperation with other countries at the policy, technical, and operational levels in dealing with cyber security incidents. Additionally, our law enforcement officials will be able to obtain information and key pieces of evidence from other jurisdictions to support investigations and the prosecution of cyber crimes. Let me at this stage commend the dynamic Minister for Communications, the Honorable Ursula Owusu-Ekufo, MP, and the members of the National Cybersecurity Interministerial Advisory Council for the establishment of the National Cybersecurity Center to coordinate cybersecurity activities in the country. It is my expectation that the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy, which is currently being revised, will be concluded before the end of the year. The revision is essential to addressing the current challenges, including funding issues for our national cybersecurity development. And in line with global trends and best practices, government will soon set up a National Cybersecurity Authority, a cyber training academy, and enact a Cybersecurity Act. We know we're not there yet, but we're making significant inroads. A recent cybersecurity capacity review conducted by the Ministry of Communications in collaboration with the World Bank and the Global Cybersecurity Capacity Center of Oxford University has identified gaps that need to be closed to ensure Ghanaians reap the full dividends associated with our country's program of digitization. The Minister for Communications will shortly present to Cabinet findings from the review to serve as a guide for resource allocation and investment in our country's cybersecurity infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, the 28th edition of the National Cybersecurity Awareness Event has thus far been impressive, and I congratulate the Ministry of Communication and its partners for a job well done. The lineup of events, which includes capacity-building programs for justices of the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, is an excellent one. It will enhance the skill set of our judges in responding to the current and emerging issues of cybercrime and in the administration of justice. The concept of a safer digital Ghana, which is the theme for this year's event, reflects our collective decision to secure our nation's digital journey. We must all contribute in making the digital experience truly safe for our country and our region. Large-scale awareness programs such as this to inform the general public and government officials to develop a cyber security culture are necessary and would always receive the support of my government. Let me show you once again, the government is determined to provide adequate funding to create the safe and secure cyber society we all desire. Ghana continues to appreciate the efforts of our cybersecurity partners, the ECOWAS Commission, the African Union Commission, the Council of Europe, the European Union, the United States government through its Security Governance Initiative, UNICEF, the World Bank, and other partners in the private sector, all of whom have consistently demonstrated commitment and support for Ghana's cybersecurity development. I look forward to receiving a report of the outcome of these discussions to inform future policy directions of the government. We should be guided in our deliberations by the vision of a progressive and prosperous Ghana in a safe, secure cyber environment, and let us work towards realizing this goal. May God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention.
The President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Ladies and gentlemen, a resounding round of applause. We're ever so grateful to you, Mr. President, for your very warm words, and most importantly, your charge to us to keep in mind all that we do in securing Ghana's digital journey as we create a safer digital Ghana. Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're pleased to acknowledge some members of the ecosystem whose support and enthusiasm we've enjoyed. Allow me to specially recognize the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Obi Akwa. We're grateful. The Chief of Army Staff, Major General William Ayamdo. The Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Peter Akufo-Addo. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Maxwell Nagai. And the Inspector General of Police, Mr. David Asante Apietu. We're grateful to you, sir. Mr. President, in view of your very busy schedule, we would respectfully like to have some 3 important photographs to mark today. If it pleases you, allow me to acknowledge the members on the dais together with you to proceed to the front for a photograph. Respectfully, let me invite the members of the National Cybersecurity Interministerial Advisory Council to please join the President and the official party.
And there we have it, the President addressing the launch of the climax of the National Cybersecurity Month, and of course calling on all stakeholders to absolutely do everything within their power to increase their capacity and keep people protected, raising some of the very important issues there under our cyber security concerns here in Ghana, and the need for the police and other security forces to stay one step ahead of perpetrators of cybercrime. Well, stay with us on the Joy News channel for even more of today's big news items. And of course, we'll be bringing them to you on the various shows as our schedule predicts. And of course, don't forget, at midday, Daniel Dazi will bring you the headlines, and then at 3 p.m. We'll be with you with The Pulse today, discussing some of the most topical issues in the news space. So all of this coming to you on the Joy News channel. Please stay with us for the duration.
God bless you, Mr. President, and may you have a very fruitful day. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa. And now the Ghana Police Band would give us a spot of music while we all retire to our seats after the departure of the President. Ghana Police Band, Honorable Ministers of State, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, just gone by was the official opening ceremony of what promises to be a very long but very fulfilling day, where we dwell on the theme we're reflecting on as part of this year's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a safer digital Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, before the members of the days arrive for the second plenary, we shall showcase to you a video on what we've done, what we continue to do, and what we intend to do as part of this campaign. For the next few minutes, please lend your attention to the screens. I'll be with you shortly. Technical crew, respectfully, can we get the video up and running? Thank you. We're grateful to have you back, Honorable Minister for Communications and your esteemed members on the high table, on the days, I beg your pardon. It's a good time to say good morning once again and welcome to this morning's very important event, the formal launch of the National Cybersecurity Program 2018. This morning, we begin with a formal welcome by our host, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Ladies and gentlemen, if you may, please welcome the commandant of this great center. I give to you Air Vice Marshal Griffith Santrophy Evans. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. Her Excellency, Honorable Minister for Communications, Mrs. Oswawusu Akufo, the Honorable Minister for Defense, Mr. Dominic Nitiwu, and all other ministers here in present, senior military officers, Diplomatic Corps, the Deputy Director of Cybersecurity, Mr. Taro Hashimoto, the Country Director of World Bank, Mr. Albert Ntibosiaku, and all invited guests. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center and to thank E-Crime also in collaboration with KIPTC for organizing this program. This program has been necessitated given the threats we have with our cyber insecurity. And this program also is to educate all in cyber security, and this ties in with the government holistic plan to tackle the cyber insecurity within this country. Also, it ties in with the government's call on institutions to partner the public sector to build capacity to address the national and global security challenges that are facing us in this country. It is our intention that at the end of all this program, we will all come together to develop and build our skills in cybersecurity, but most importantly, to create awareness that will lead to the injection of the culture of cyber awareness amongst all, not only those of us here, but it's our intention to go down amongst the young ones, that is, we go down to the secondary and primary institutions to ensure that we catch them young and train them young and give them the awareness that we all have to. I take this opportunity again to welcome all of you to the Akufo-Addo International Peacekeeping Training Center and hope that this program becomes a success. Thank you and welcome again.
Air Vice Marshal, I beg your pardon, Griffith Santrophe Evans, the Commandant of the Akufo-Addo International Peacekeeping Training Center, a world-class institution of learning. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. We're grateful to you, sir, for your warm words of welcome. This morning, it's my pleasure also to invite to share words of welcome our co-host, the Ghana National Cybersecurity Advisor. Please make welcome Mr. Albert Entry Wesiakon.
Honorable Minister for Communications, my very good boss, who also doubles as a queen mother of Achimesum. I wish to express my heartfelt appreciation to you and other ministers of the Interministerial Advisory Council, especially for the direction on cybersecurity in the last couple of months. It is surprising, ladies and gentlemen, to note that the number of achievements in cybersecurity and the stewardship of this council has been possible without a national budget. Madam Minister, your leadership reflects on the unpalatable truth that it is leadership and political commitment that achieves results rather than what has been the most sung narrative of the African underdevelopment story. Lack of financing. I think what we have achieved here deviates that African logic. There is a sense of enthusiasm, especially among my colleagues, members of the National Cybersecurity Technical Working Group, about the progress we have made so far, largely due to the government commitment on cybersecurity. I think that is a key word. If we should be looking for what the determinant, the imperatives, for what the President has announced, it is leadership, it is commitment, and most importantly, political commitment. And I think it's good that we speak about this. It's good we recognize that, especially when we have other colleagues from West African countries who are also learning from what Ghana is doing. I think having the President 2 consecutive times, for some of us, such leadership engenders hard work and willingness to serve our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I must admit that the successes in our cybersecurity development would not have been possible without the work of the Technical Working Group. The establishment of the Technical Working Group by the Council has been one of the foundational pillars of our current success. It is true, you can always have a mandate, as the Minister for Communication has a mandate on cybersecurity, but you need a team to be able to drive the agenda, and that is what the Technical Working Group represents. Indeed, the World Bank and ECOWAS are adopting a similar model of establishing ECOWAS Cybersecurity Technical Working Group to advance cybersecurity development in the region. My colleagues are here, and they will attest to the fact that this current development is modeled around what Ghana has achieved. And we need to recognize this as well. It is good to thank my colleagues, Technical Working Group members, for making Ghana's cybersecurity project a success. Honorable Minister, it is imperative that we recognize the efforts of our partners as well. The World Bank, the Council of Europe, the European Union, UNICEF, United States government through the Security Governance Initiative have been exceptionally supportive for Ghana's cybersecurity development. Yes, there have been successes, evidenced in the speech delivered by His Excellency the President. But despite the successes we have achieved in the last couple of months, my fellow Ghanaians, findings from the capacity maturity model, which I will present later in the plenary, reflect the task ahead. We need to scale up our effort to protect our critical national information infrastructure. We need to address existing gaps in our cybercrime and cybersecurity legislations. We need to speed up capacity building efforts for the public officials. We need to intensify our public awareness efforts. And most importantly, we need to operationalize our international cooperation effort in addressing the challenges that we all face as a country. In the next coming weeks and months, the Ministry of Communications will reach out to representatives of the civil society, the ministries and government agencies, academia, businesses, international partners in the implementation of the next phase of our country's cyber development agenda. Madam Minister, thanks for the opportunity to serve our nation in this area. Thank you so much for coming and have a fruitful session.
Many thanks to you, Mr. Albert Ntriboisiakon, the National Cybersecurity Advisor. We're grateful for all that you're doing in your capacity for the government and people of Ghana. Madam Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're pleased to have with us some great partners, the European Union, the World Bank, and the government of Japan. In a short while, they will all be speaking to us. But Machiavelli once said that good laws are nothing without good arms, and that's why today we celebrate a robust and new National Communications Authority. This morning, it's my pleasure to acknowledge with us the Director General, Mr. Joe Anochi. A round of applause for him. Thank you for joining us this morning. And so in moving on, we're pleased to have to speak to us now the European Union Ambassador to Ghana. Please make welcome for her remarks, Her Excellency, Madame Diana Akontia.
Honorable Minister for Communication, Mrs. Ursula Owoksu-Ekuful, Commandant of Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Air Vice Marshal Griffiths Santrophi Evans, National Cybersecurity Advisor, Mr. Albert Antwi Basiako, Country Director of the World Bank, Mr. Henry Kerali, Deputy Director for Cybersecurity Policy, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication, Government of Japan, Mr. Taro Hashimoto, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the European Union, I would like to thank the National Cybersecurity Center for inviting me today to share the European views and experiences during this very impressive event marking the Cybersecurity Awareness Month celebrated worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, technological innovations bring great potential and help us achieve a better future. The benefits of ICT are obvious to all of us, reinforcing economic development, enabling essential services, facilitating social connections, making financial transactions from our living rooms. The list is endless. Technology also acts as a great global equalizer. The Internet empowers people in all concerns of the world, young and old, rich and poor. The importance of ICT as an enabler for sustainable development and a means for governance accountability has also been confirmed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As we witness countries around the globe rolling out broad ICT strategies in order to reap the digital dividends, we also realize that our growing dependence on ICT is coupled with potential vulnerabilities. The fast evolution of criminal behaviors and patterns, exploiting technology developments and existing legal gaps, is omnipresent. We read about it every day in the news. It is evident that fighting criminal activity carried out in cyberspace is a complex challenge, especially since the threshold for committing cybercrime has decreased immensely in the past few years. It is not difficult to become a cybercriminal. Even more so, cybercrime ignores borders. Criminals take advantage of the territoriality of legislation to make their crimes harder to investigate and prosecute. Indeed, judiciary and law enforcement authorities are confronted with immense difficulties in delivering their mandate. The traditional law enforcement mechanisms are often rendered ineffective in light of the complex features of cybercrime. To address these challenges, we need in Europe, in Ghana, and worldwide to develop relevant domestic legal frameworks implemented by appropriately trained people, to devise new ways of monitoring and reporting cybercriminal activity, to work together across borders and across society. At the same time, there is a balance to strike. We should not strangle the new technology. We must maximize the benefits of, for example, the internet while minimizing the connected risks. We must fight cybercrime, but without sacrificing the rule of law, including the protection of human rights. We also must have confidence in each other's ICT systems so that international trade and communication are encouraged. This important balance is offered by the Budapest Convention, which was drafted by the Council of Europe and signed by 61 countries until now, including the United States of America. This convention is the most important legally binding international agreement on cybercrime. Accession to the convention sends an important signal about a country's readiness to effectively fight cybercrime and engage in international cooperation to this end. And as mentioned by His Excellency the President, Ghana has signed the Budapest Convention. And it was because Ghana initiated the process of joining some years ago that the European Union committed to support the country in implementing the convention and enhancing the capacities of relevant national institutions in fighting cybercrime. Since 2013, the European Union, together with the Council of Europe, have partnered to build on the earlier experience of our cooperation with countries acceding the Budapest Convention, and we delivered the joint EU-Council of Europe Global Action on Cybercrime. The programs are called GLACI and GLACI Plus, for a total of 13 million in all partner countries to be implemented until 2020. GLACI Plus has offered in particular to Ghana technical assistance in harmonization of legislation and policy in line with the Budapest Convention, judicial training, providing skills for judges and prosecutors on cases of cybercrime and electronic evidence, law enforcement capacities, providing specialized skills for investigation of cybercrime and electronic evidence, international cooperation and information sharing. Interpol also joined the initiative on the law enforcement component, as well as several European Union member states. But on this issue, strong local ownership and commitment is key. So, in order to support an intervention owned by partner countries, the EU launched recently a new initiative called Cyber Resilience for Development, for an total amount of 11 million euros that will run until 2020. This new project will build on GLACI achievements, supporting further the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, particularly the SDGs 9A and 16A. This project, implemented with several active EU member states, will aim at increasing the security and resilience of critical information infrastructure of partner countries while ensuring compliance with human rights and the rule of law, through the adoption and implementation of a comprehensive set of policies, organization, and technical measures. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reiterate on behalf of the European Union our commitment to foster the positive work accomplished on this issue over the last decade and develop further our collaboration in this area of mutual interest and shared values. I wish you all the best with the events during this week and looking forward to meet you for future engagement on the issue. Thank you.
We're grateful to you, Your Excellency, Madame Diana Akonsia, EU Ambassador to Ghana. Thanks for your warm remarks on your commitment and cooperation in our collective quest to ensure a safer digital Ghana. Honorable Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're joined by some eminent stakeholders our traditional authorities. Allow me to specially welcome His Royal Majesty, the Teshi Manche Becholo Ni Ashite Akonfra III. Welcome, sir. In the company of His Royal Majesty, his kingsmen, ladies and gentlemen, the Teshi Shikitele Ni Ajete Okwe III. Welcome you, sir. Joining His Royal Majesty, the Teshi Jache Ni Ashikwe Kwaboche II. Ni Lae Obosanfo is also part of the delegation. A round of applause. Ni Ashite Akonfra, we welcome you warmly. Mr. Ari Kwe is with the Traditional Council and is the Secretary of the Teshi Traditional Council. Mr. John Ajay Kwe also joins this great party. Ni Ago Kacho is a member of the delegation. And last but certainly not the least, Ni Boy Lae. We welcome you ever so warmly. This morning, it's with great pride that I also wish to acknowledge in our midst the Executive Chairman of the State Enterprises Commission, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Stephen Asamoah Boateng. Thank you for joining us this morning. And so in moving on, we're joined by the World Bank, and it's my pleasure to invite the Country Director, Mr. Henry Kerali, to share his thoughts. A round of applause as he comes.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Honorable Minister of Communications, Honorable Minister of Defense, Honorable Ministers here present, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, Heads of Security Services, Excellency, EU Ambassador, Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Director of Cybersecurity Policy, Government of Japan, Members of the National Cybersecurity Council, Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, participants from ECOWAS countries, traditional leaders, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I would like to start by acknowledging the presence here today of His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who opened this event only a few minutes ago. It is therefore a great honor for the World Bank Group to be part of this event. As we all know, the past decade has been characterized by digital transformations across the globe as governments seek to develop the digital economy. The transition from traditional to digital economies remains particularly critical for developing countries as it enables faster growth, offers innovative products and services, creates jobs, and boosts economic competitiveness, thereby reducing poverty and boosting shared prosperity. Despite its infancy, the positive impact of disruptive technologies in accelerating economic growth, this has been undermined by the increase of cyber threats and risks at national and global levels. These risks are not new. They have always been present, and we have always been warned by cybersecurity experts. However, it is not until devastating cyber attacks occurred globally over the past few years that cybersecurity has become a mainstream policy in all countries. Africa, which has yet to develop a robust digital economy, has lost an estimated $3.5 billion to cybersecurity attacks over the past few years. Whilst countries are focused on building their digital economies, cyber attackers continue to enhance their skills to match these digital enhancements and thereby take advantage of the opportunities provided by the internet and other disruptive technologies. Within a short period of time, cyber attackers have advanced to a sophisticated level, whilst most countries are still having only rudimentary protection levels. Corporations and governments must invest in raising cybersecurity awareness and building cybersecurity expertise and capacity. Otherwise, they remain vulnerable to attacks with the ensuing financial and reputational risks. The World Bank Group has identified cybersecurity as a critical element to foster digital development and implement the digital economy agenda in developing countries. Individual developing countries have limited financial and technical resources to invest in sophisticated cybersecurity protection. Hence, it is important that countries collaborate to improve cybersecurity and decrease the level of exposure to cyber attacks through regional integration and harmonization. This is now even more important as advanced countries put up strong defenses against cyber attacks. You can imagine that the cyber attackers will shift to countries with weaker defenses, and we must not be in that group. This will require countries to establish cybersecurity capacity, and to this end, the World Bank Group has established partnerships with other development partners to support the global advancement of cybersecurity capacity. This week, we have the Cybersecurity Clinic for the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, with the support of the government of Japan, the government of the UK, and the government of Israel. The objective is to raise awareness and build capacity in cybersecurity based on knowledge and expertise from cybersecurity experts who are visiting Ghana. Through this, ECOWAS countries, we hope, will be able to identify their own individual challenges, priorities, and solutions. I'd like to conclude by expressing our gratitude to the government of Ghana and to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center for hosting this important clinic. I wish you all a very productive week and a super cybersecurity. Thank you.
We're grateful to you, Mr. Henry Kerali, Country Director for the World Bank, a great organization which serves as an agent for promoting economic prosperity and shared growth for all, and the mechanisms that you support in achieving same. We say thank you. This morning, we're pleased to have with us also from the cybersecurity outfit of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications of the Government of Japan, the Director General of this institution. Please welcome Mr. Taro Hashimoto.
The Honorable Minister of Communications, Minister of Defense, Government of Ghana, distinguished representatives of government of ECOWAS countries, the World Bank, European Union, and traditional leaders, and ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Director General for the International Affairs, Akihiko Miyamoto, from Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, Government of Japan, I am delivering his opening remarks. It is a great honor to have an opportunity to join this opening ceremony and following cybersecurity clinic hosted by Government of Ghana and World Bank. First of all, I would like to celebrate this wonderful opening event. This is a launching event for a cybersecurity program in digital development partnership led by the World Bank. And it aims for strengthening cybersecurity capabilities in the ECOWAS countries. We understand that the expansion of communication network in West African countries has been greatly accelerated by the initiative of WORSHIP, which stands for West Africa Regional Communications Infrastructure Program by the World Bank. Thanks to the expansion of the network brought by this program, we expect that utilization of the ICT in West Africa will advance, and it brings huge benefit to social life and economic activities. At the same time, it means that West African countries, become members of global cyberspace, and strengthening cybersecurity turns out to be an urgent agenda. Cybersecurity measures need to cover a broad range and require continuous effort to make. As a partner sharing responsibility and benefit in safe and trustful global cyberspace, Government of Japan join and contribute funding to DDP by the World Bank and make a full commitment to cooperation in these initiatives to build higher capacity, especially in the West Africa, including hosting a study tour to Japan. Cyberspace is borderless by nature, and thus vulnerability does not remain an issue of one country. As a member of global digital economy, government and industry in each country has a responsibility to improve its cyber security. At the same time, highly developed cybersecurity environment is an important foundation for the growth of various digital industries and digitalized services, and thus forms the basis of development of digital economy. Government of Japan worked to strengthen cybersecurity in West African regions and contribute to building the basis for the development of digital economy in this region, together with World Bank and other global partners. Africa is entering an era for creation of new development history, making use of the chances brought by emerging technologies and innovations. ICT and digital technology are driving forces to bring economic growth and transform society, and to realize leapfrogging development. Cybersecurity forms the basis of development of such digital technologies and digital economy. Government of Japan commits to participating in the development of Africa and keeps in line with Africa together with global community. We, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, and the whole government of Japan fully commit to these initiatives. I truly hope that capacity building in cybersecurity in this event accelerate the development of digital economy in West Africa and becomes new bridges between Japan and Africa. Thank you.
Many thanks to you, the Deputy Director, Cybersecurity Policy, Ministry for Internal Affairs and Communications of the Government of Japan. We're grateful to you, Mr. Taro Hashimoto. And now, ladies and gentlemen, in a very short while, we'll be bringing this second plenary to a close. We shall then move to the exhibition area and acquaint ourselves with all the solutions and the professionals who are here to speak and show us how we can ensure a safer digital Ghana. But until that time, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to have the official address of the Minister for Communications. Please make welcome the Honorable Mrs. Esla Owusu-Ekufo.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Minister for National Security, who is a member of the National Cybersecurity Interministerial Advisory Council, the Chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Communications, our host, Air Vice Marshal Griffith Santrophy Evans, of the Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, NIME, members of the National Cybersecurity Technical Working Group, Mrs. Dinah Akonchia, EU Ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Henry Kerali, Country Director of the World Bank, Mr. Taro Hashimoto, Deputy Director of the Cybersecurity Policy, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications of the Government of Japan, Mr. Albert Mchibwesiakun, National Cybersecurity Advisor, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Technical Working Group, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you, heads of security agencies present, the Director General of the National Communications Authority, and my able deputy ministers as well, members of the Diplomatic Corps. Thank you for acceding to our invitation to be present at this morning's event. It would have been a very sorry function if none of you showed up, and we would have had to communicate to an empty room. Thank you very much. And to the media for amplifying our voice. We're grateful that you're here. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the climax of the month-long series of activities marking our active engagement on our cybersecurity activities this year. Cybersecurity has become one of the dominant issues of the digital economy, mainly due to its far-reaching impact on all of us as countries, businesses, and individuals become more connected. New products and services are available, bringing with them new threats and risks. Indeed, addressing the risks arising from digitalization requires not only a collaborative engagement between the government and the private sector, but it also needs leadership and political commitment at the highest level. As I indicated earlier this morning, we're fortunate in this, for commitment has been amply demonstrated by His Excellency the President in not only establishing the Cybersecurity Center, but being present himself here this morning, as he was last year, despite his impossible schedule, to interact with us and provide us helpful insights to guide our deliberations. There is no doubt that with such demonstrated leadership, Ghana is truly in safe hands. And our development partners and neighbors in ECOWAS have followed the leadership and commitment of our President on Ghana's cybersecurity and are using our example as a model for the development of cybersecurity initiatives across our region. And the Council of Europe has also chosen Ghana as the hub for their judicial training under the GLACY Plus project in West Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, one of the main threats facing the global digital ecosystem is the threat to critical national information infrastructures. In a digitalized economy, it is imperative that we provide a necessary protection to all our critical national information infrastructure, such as telecommunications, the financial sector, the government machinery, our security systems, our industrial systems, the power supply chain, and electoral systems, amongst others. The survival of our nation is largely dependent on our ability to secure and protect critical databases, applications, and systems which run these various sectors. Because the destruction or disruption of any of these systems will significantly affect our economic strength, our image, our national security and defense, and our government's ability to function effectively. The introduction of mobile money, ladies and gentlemen, has also suffered from attempts at defrauding the system by malicious actors. In 2017, one of the telecoms companies reported that it received about 365 complaints of fraud monthly from its subscribers. The scale of attempts at fraud are staggering, as it also indicated that it filtered all the SMS messages that passed through its platforms and blocked more than 400,000 scam messages on a daily basis from reaching their final recipients. The Ghana Police Service Cybercrime Unit admits that it is only able to investigate and prosecute just about 10% of the cases reported to it, due primarily to the use of fake identities to register SIM cards. On the issue of mobile money fraud, estimates of analysts suggest that about 50% of all mobile money subscribers have either been targeted or experienced one form of fraud or another. It's important to note that people and not computers create computer security threats. And so it is imperative to cultivate a safe cyber culture and safe cyber hygienic practices as we continually digitalize. Social media has also completely changed the way we communicate and interact with each other. However, while the internet is an excellent tool that facilitates social interaction, there are predators out there seeking to use it for malicious purposes. Estimates put the number of Ghanaians connected to the internet at a little over 10 million, with 4.9 million of them being Facebook users alone. Fake news is proliferating and putting us all at risk. A majority of those on social media use it primarily to communicate with friends and to meet new ones. But the danger for young children online is that they can be subjected to influences which are detrimental to their development. There have been cases of children being introduced to malicious information, pornography, etc. online. That provides a critical challenge for our young ones and for all of us. How do we make the internet and social media safe and protect our children from these negative influences? The cybersecurity development agenda for Ghana must necessarily and intrinsically involve the entire sub-region, for we sink or swim together. Ghana is a member of a region which allows free movement of goods and services across borders. The integration of our computer systems for authentication of persons who have a right of entry is a must. Our collective efforts in this connection is evidenced by being signatory to the ECOWAS Directive on Cybercrime. The presence of representatives from ECOWAS countries attests to our willingness to collaborate on the cybersecurity front to make our country and the entire sub-region digitally safe. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Communications has undertaken a number of activities over the past year as part of its mandate in the implementation of the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy. A number of these initiatives include the development of Ghana's cybersecurity incident response capabilities through the establishment of a computer emergency response teams, capacity building programs, including judicial training through collaboration with the Council of Europe, and risk management training programs for public sector officials through collaboration with the U.S. government under the Cybersecurity Governance Initiative. One critical area which the ministry has made significant strides in is implementation of mechanisms to protect children and young adults on the internet. And I want to express our appreciation to UNICEF for their support to the ministry to operationalize the Child Online Protection Unit of the Cybersecurity Center. This unit serves as a point of contact for government and non-governmental stakeholders to identify and implement programs including awareness training to protect children on the internet. A helpline, a safe app would also be implemented in the course of the coming year. The Ministry of Communications has also set up a cybersecurity center to coordinate cybersecurity incidents in government and within the private sector. This will be inaugurated on Wednesday and provide basic cybersecurity services to the ecosystem to curtail the growing menace of cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches. The current setup is supporting the formative development of Ghana's cybersecurity. And we're working to submit a comprehensive roadmap for Ghana's cybersecurity through a revised national policy and strategy. It is gratifying to note that the President this morning indicated that, yes, we will set up a cybersecurity authority, a cyber academy, and that the government will provide adequate financial support for our initiatives in this area. We also appreciate the support provided by the National Communications Authority and the World Bank to operationalize the activities of the Cybersecurity Center. Without them, we would have been unable to achieve all the modest gains that we've made in the past year. We've also developed cybersecurity advisory and guidelines for ministries, departments, and agencies in the past year, in view of a number of incidents that were reported to the ministry and other agencies. These guidelines have been implemented by a number of MDAs to help improve their cybersecurity environment. Cybersecurity in the public sector is one of the key priorities of the Interministerial Advisory Council. And in this regard, NITA, the Information Technology Agency, is currently working with the World Bank to deploy a secure network for all government institutions to help improve the general cybersecurity situation in the public sector on a sustainable basis. Without a secured infrastructure and foundation, everything you put on it will become infected. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've also undertaken extensive collaborative discussions and study tours to be abreast with trends in other countries of comparable size and development. Our efforts at completing the establishment of the center are consistent with best practices around the world. We are aware that the UK inaugurated its National Cybersecurity Center in 2016. The State of Israel has set up a National Cybersecurity Authority to coordinate its national response to cybersecurity issues. Within the African continent, Kenya has set up a National Cybersecurity Committee which coordinates cybersecurity activities in collaboration with the National Intelligence Services of Kenya. Rwanda has set up its National Cybersecurity Agency. Other countries have also set up their respective architectures to protect against the threats that they all face. In addition to all the initiatives that we've undertaken, we also, in partnership with the World Bank and the Oxford Cybersecurity Center, undertook a cybersecurity capacity review of the country to provide us with a baseline study of where we actually are. The fundamental aim of the review was to ensure a well-researched, evidence-based roadmap for consolidating the implementation of our country's cybersecurity strategy and prioritize investment in our cybersecurity capabilities. 5 dimensions of the study were considered in the review as follows. And the areas, they focused on 5 areas, such as cybersecurity policy and strategy, culture and society, education, training and skills, the legal and regulatory framework, and standards, organizations, and technology. It identified our weaknesses in each of these areas and what needs to be done to protect us and ensure our maximum security. Key among the recommendations, and one of the low-hanging fruits, was the need to focus on awareness creation, as the study found that users in both the public and private sector have very minimum levels of cybersecurity risk awareness and proper secure online behavior. We took this advice seriously, knowing that knowledge of the inherent dangers is power against abuse. And on 1st October this year, the Vice President, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, launched a national awareness program designed to address cybercrime awareness gaps amongst children, the public, businesses, and government. We took the awareness program around the country this month, and it is expected to empower and encourage our citizenry to adopt more responsible behavior relative to their digital activities. This week, we will outdoor a number of contact points to facilitate cybercrime and cybersecurity incident reporting as part of the public awareness campaign. This awareness program and capacity building initiatives of the public sector would also be enhanced this week, and members of parliament and ministers of state who are also required to adopt essential cyber hygiene practices to ensure their personal digital safety and, more importantly, the security of government data would also be taken through a period of instruction. The ministry, in addition to this, will collaborate with the council and relevant agencies and private sector stakeholders to implement a number of cybersecurity initiatives to scale up our preparedness. NITA will also implement a public key infrastructure to facilitate the security of electronic transactions. This month, under the theme A Safer Digital Ghana, we focused on the following key objectives: awareness creation on cybercrime trends and impacts of cybersecurity issues on individuals, children, businesses, and government. We're showcasing the achievements of Ghana and key milestones achieved in the development of cybersecurity. We're taking the cybersecurity public education campaign across the country, especially amongst the youth, and engaging with various groups to gain feedback on cybersecurity to impact policy review and implementation. The President has indicated our prioritization of international cooperation and partnerships, and will deepen the platform for engagement with service providers, individuals, businesses, and government. Some of the activities will be undertaken during the course of this week's program here at Kofi Annan with some key stakeholders to support the thrust to have a digitally safe Ghana include the Government of Ghana, World Bank, ECOWAS Cybersecurity Clinic for selected actors in the West African sub-region, the Government of Ghana program with UNICEF and partners on child online protection, Government of Ghana and Council of Europe joint workshop on cybercrime and electronic evidence for Supreme Court judges and Appeal Court judges, Government of Ghana, Council of Europe joint workshop on cybercrime and cybersecurity for selected members of parliament. Would also have a cybersecurity forum for the financial sector, and together with the Security Governance Initiative of the US, we would also have a joint capacity building program for the security sector and a stakeholder workshop on internet governance and Ghana's domain name registry. We'll also have a session with all former ministers of communications and dialogue on cybersecurity trends across the ages during their tenure and seek their input as we also develop and review our policy and strategy. We have a full week of activities ahead of us for the climax, as activities in the other 9 regions have been completed. I'd encourage all of you to actively participate in all sessions and discussions and provide us with your views, comments, and suggestions as we craft a better and safer digital experience for all of us. We thank all our exhibitors also from around the world who have also come to showcase their products and services, and would encourage you all to view the various exhibitions that have been mounted. It is our collective event, and so let's work together to achieve a safer digital Ghana. As I conclude my remarks, I wish to express my sincere appreciation to my colleague ministers, members of the Interministerial Advisory Council, for their commitment and partnership towards Ghana's cybersecurity development. We're grateful for your counsel. The National Cybersecurity Technical Working Group has put in an immense amount of work with very limited resources, and I am very grateful for the hard work you've put in and your continuous support for the development of our cybersecurity. I'm grateful to the members of the Planning Committee, partners and sponsors for their financial, logistical, and technical support, and to the staff of the newly established National Cybersecurity Center for their dedication to duty and hard work, which they put in to make this event a success. I can't conclude without expressing my sincere appreciation to the Commandant and staff of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center for granting us the use of your facilities this whole week. Thank you. Incidentally, it's a homecoming for me too. I wish us all a successful National Cybersecurity Awareness Week celebration as we climax month-long events. And I thank you for your support, encouragement, and your presence. May the Lord bless us all. Thank you.
We're grateful.
So back in the studios of Joy News, we're coming to you live from the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, where the week-long Safer Digital Ghana month-long exercise is being launched, and according to the Minister of Communication, series of activities are going to be rolled out, including holding stakeholder consultations over how to keep a safer digital space and child online protection, among others. We will be crossing over back there as and when there is some conversation for you.